Hi, I'm Muir. Welcome back for another Tool Time Tuesday. In this video, I'm going to show you how I created my own tabletop draw bench. Now this topic came about because I'm working through the project series of professional jewelry making by Revere. And you can see some of those previous videos if you just click on the little link up here. Now, one of the projects that we are going to be doing, actually there's a couple, you need to draw down your wire to reshape it, to pull it to a different size, and even create tubing. Now this is something that is very handy to have, but they're not easily affordable. So I did a lot of research, checked out different threads on Gnoxin, different websites from different metalsmiths and things like that that have made some. And I found one that I really liked that would have been a little lighter weight, pretty portable, but it included welding. And while I had access to somebody who could help me weld, I know that not everybody has that. So I opted to go a different route, and I've mounted things just on a 2x6. And so that is the way that I decided I would show you guys, because most people can work a drill or a screwdriver and do this method. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I did pull a lot of information from different sources of people who have made their own. And if you have any suggestions or comments, please leave them in the comments. I would love to hear them. So in this project, like I said, I decided to use a 2x6x8. So it's 8 feet long. My draw bench is very long. Yours doesn't necessarily have to be this long, but I will show you one of the reasons that I considered making it a little longer in just a moment. In addition to that, I also used just some shelf brackets that I found to help act as my little stopper, or that opposing force rather, on my draw plate. And you guys will see this in action. You need some L brackets that are pretty strong. You won't have any force there, so they don't have to be super duty strength, but you want to make sure that you have enough length there to hold your draw plate up against the shelf brackets. In addition to this, and of course, one of the most important things that I need is my boat winch. Now the winch was the most expensive part of this project, and I want to say that it was under $30 even. So we're not talking about high expense on this particular project, which is great because one of the draw benches that I looked at was over $600. So see, I saved you guys several $100s. You're welcome. No applaud necessary, just throw money. In addition, make sure that your screws are the correct length for the items that you're going to be attaching. The majority of my screws were 1.5 to 1 3/4 inches. 2 inches was a little too long, and I wanted to make sure that things stayed flush on the bottom. Now, as I said before, there were a couple of things that I did here, and this is modifications that I've made based off of comments that I found on a Gnoxin thread regarding creating their own draw benches and things like that. So really quickly, here we have a draw plate. Now this is a very inexpensive draw plate, and because of that, I mean, it definitely is an economy value as well. I'm finding that the different holes are not ground as nicely on the inside as I would like, and that does definitely cause maybe an issue with the fineness of my metal as it comes through. So we'll talk a little bit more about draw plates in later projects, not necessarily so much this one. This was more about just actually creating that draw bench itself. So one of the things that you need when you are drawing wire is you are going to need some draw tongs. Now in this case, instead of ordering a pair of $65, $70 draw tongs, one of the gentlemen on Gnoxin had said that he bought some Vise grips. And there's usually a knob here that allows you to tighten this up and make it so that your pressure stays where it needs to be and it doesn't loosen up on this end when you go to pull things. Well, he replaced his with an eye pin or an eye bolt. Now this one actually had already a hole in it because it's meant so that you can add some extra torque with like a screwdriver or something like that. Well, what I found was a little clamp, or a hook here rather, not a clamp, but a hook, and the cotter pin fit almost perfectly within this little eye pin that's already here. So what I had to do though was I needed to drill out the opening in the eye itself, just ever so slightly. I probably could have done it with a file, but because I had a drill bit that was the right size, I went ahead and used my drill press to create that opening just a little bit larger. Now, in addition, I did need to create more of an opening here inside of this hook so that it would fit over the hook of the winch. This is the hook that is on the winch itself, and so this is what's going to have that pulling force for me, so you know things are going to pull along. Well, you need to have it so that these hooks can come in here and hook together and into the right position. So I didn't want to have the force over here. I needed to have the force down here at the bottom. And so see how that fits in there nice and snug? That's what I want to have. And that way when the force gets pulled here and you get pulled along, you'll have that nice tension and it follows all the way through the vice grip to my metal itself. And it's very important that you have that. Well, the way that this was created, there was a little bit of a lip in here. And so I used a really coarse file just to file this down. And I won't lie, it took a little while. There definitely was probably about, I don't know, 30 minutes or more of filing. It was a lot of fun. And I used a really coarse file from the hardware store. So I didn't use any of my jeweler files, just a really, really coarse one from the hardware store. So again, you're looking at just a couple dollars of investment on that. So now that we have this, it's time to bolt everything down. Now I told you before that I created my bench really long, like 8 feet, because of another reason. And this right here is the reason. So draw tongs would probably be about this long, and then they would have like a couple of hooks that then you would take and you would hook this into that hook. Well, I have a couple extra inches of length here. So between this part, the hook here, and my draw tongs, or in this case, my vice grip, I have like 6 inches here or so, maybe even a little more. So things that I have to take into account, not only do I have the length of the winch itself, but then I also have the length of my vice grip plus the hook that goes to the winch. So there's a big factor right there. That's almost a foot of space that's not going to be usable for drawing. So if my bench was only, let's say 6 feet or 5.5 feet, well then I can really only pull my wire maybe about 4.5 to 5 feet if I'm lucky. So you want to kind of keep that in mind when it comes time for you to create your own draw bench. Now, how do I store this? Well, I have a couple of ideas, but luckily for me, my bench that I work at, my normal jewelry bench, is about 6.5 feet long. So for me, it's going to be stored underneath that. And then I can easily just pull it out when I need it. But otherwise, I'll have to find some place to put this baby. And these 8 feet, my ceilings are 9. So I could realistically create some kind of a hooking system and hang it up on my wall as well. You just have to be cautious when you're walking past it because I do have some protruding items there as well. So the first thing that I did was I installed the L brackets. Now notice that I'm doing it from the underside of this board. Well, right now it's on the top, but you can see that it's going to be the underside. And I pre-drilled the holes, and then I just screwed in my screws to attach and secure the L brackets. Now there are 3 holes here. I could have done 6 screws, but I only did 4. There's really not going to be any pressure put onto these L brackets at all. It's just to stop so that my draw plate doesn't fall off when my wire is finished being pulled through. Now, I'm going to flip the board over, and you can see I've got these brackets that I found for shelving. Now I bought these brackets not just because they were pretty, although that didn't hurt things at all, but I also really liked that it had kind of that crossbar action, which was going to provide a lot more support for me when that plate is being pulled against these. So again, just like I did with the L brackets, I pre-drill my holes and I then screw everything down, make sure it's nice and secure. You'll notice that the plate is not like super snug in between those two brackets, and that's totally fine. If you want it to be more secure, you definitely can. Just adjust where you put your screws, or you could even use some felt pads to kind of pad things in there between the different brackets as well. Now that I have the L brackets and the bookshelf brackets on there, next thing I need to do is secure this winch. First thing I'm going to do is mark where I need to drill my holes for the winch. Make sure that you give yourself enough room to actually get that handle to turn. You don't want to get going on this and get everything secured and not be able to turn your handle. So pay attention to that first. It will be offset a little bit because my winch is only 4 inches wide, whereas my board is 6 inches. Once I have my holes drilled to the size that I need for my bolts, in this case 3/8 inch, then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to use one of the big hole drill bits. And this I'm going to do so that I can recess the bolts and the nuts and the washers underneath, so that way I can just flush mount this board onto my tabletop when I'm ready to use it. Otherwise it would have to hang off the end of my board or hang off the end of my surface or whatever else. So this way, if I just recess those, then it doesn't really matter. As long as I've got a flat tabletop, then it can be used. Next thing I need to do is flip the board, you can see here, on its side. And there may have been a few cuss words on this part, but I'm not telling, just so you know. It can be kind of frustrating when you're trying to get that stupid little nut onto the dumb bolt and it doesn't want to go. Now that everything is assembled, it's on the board, it's time to give this a try. So first thing I need to do is I've got to create a draw dog that's long enough that will go through that draw plate. A draw dog is the tapered end of your wire that goes through the hole that you want to pull the rest of your wire through. Now it's tapered because right now the rest of your wire is too large to actually go through the hole, but yet you've got to have something that your tongs, or in this case my vice grip, can hold on to. And it also does note, just take note that it does create a weak spot. It is going to have a lot of pressure on it, and if you try to draw your wire down too quickly, then it breaks. So there's definitely a learning curve to this. But in the end, I did finally have a few successes, and I'm very happy to say it works fantastic. And if you have any suggestions or comments, please leave them in the comments. I would love to hear them. So I hope this little video helped you. I know it's a kind of a quick one and there's not a lot of super detail, but it wasn't a really big detailed project to begin with. So hopefully you can see how easy it is to create your own draw bench. And this I hope was very helpful. Like I said, if you guys have questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. If you like the video, be sure to give me a thumbs up. If you want to find out when I have more videos, make sure you're subscribed and ring the bell so that you're notified as well when I post new videos. Thanks so much, and I will see you guys next week with another project out of Alan Revere's book, Professional Jewelry Making.